All right, so let's see, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe even longer than that. Yes, you're the subject of this video. I came across a book at the bookstore in Brevard, North Carolina called The Plott Hound by Bob Plott, and our state dog, something like that. And I picked it up and I read it and I was blown away because a lot of the places that I've been botanizing, I teach botany, plant stuff, whatever, the mountains of North Carolina, or I did for years. And I read the book and it was super captivating. And well, I went about trying to get myself a Plott hound. I found one eventually by joining, these Facebook groups. We love Plott hounds, Plotts of North Carolina and West Virginia and stuff. Eventually I got one of the Weems lineage. You don't need to know or care about any of that stuff. But anyways, long story short, then I went about reading how to train Plott hounds to hunt black bear, because that's what they're supposed to do, or at least scratch that itch in their instinct, in their lineage, right? Well, turns out there's not a whole lot of really clear and concise lineage on how to, there's a couple YouTube videos on bringing your dogs out in your 60 acres of land, and if you've got hogs, how to teach them how to bay and all this stuff. But it really wasn't too clear, even reading a bunch of kind of old dog training manuals on how to go about kind of getting these associations started. And a lot of these things are pretty instinctive. You'll find if you've got yourself a hound dog, they naturally do a lot of different things. So what I did was me and my daughter, we went to Plott Fest this year with our little Plott puppy, and we watched the events, right? They've got a baying event where they've got a big, mechanized taxidermied black bear that they pneumatically control back and forth, and they let all the dogs out to bay it. And they do the same thing. They take that giant taxidermied black bear and they hook it up to a giant pole and they dangle it up and down, and then they release the hounds from about 50 feet and they run up and they tree it, and they essentially look at the intensity and how well they do each of these activities. And so with that information in hand and essentially talking to a lot of these people, I set about training my puppy how to do that. But I live in a city, like a lot of us, right? I've actually got a pretty good chunk of land here in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's almost, a whole half an acre, right? Got a big garden. But I wanted to train my dog how to bear hunt, or at least scratch that itch for her. I've got a little bit of training with dogs in general. We've got a diabetic alert dog. My daughter's a type 1, and she's an expert with any scent. You can pretty much take any item at all, a flip-flop, a t-shirt, and go hide it in the woods a quarter-mile away, and she'll find it in a room or out in the woods, or anything you want her to do. She naturally finds antler sheds. And so I was pretty familiar with, the basics of scent trailing. I like to play scent games with her. I bought some duck scent online, and, a duck decoy, and then I put the scent on it and take it out into the woods and drag it back to the house, and then go hide it by taking different trails so that she could only follow that scent that dissipated along the trail. And so I've been doing similar things with the new Plott hound with the scent trailing. You'll need some very basic abilities to get going on these things. You're going to need to teach your dog, things like sit. Clicker training is real easy. She has a natural tendency to also spin in circles, and so I taught her to turn around. That's kind of easier than bow. I find is kind of tricky on her, although she stretches in the morning, so she's got bow now. And lay down, just some basic things. And a really, really important thing, they naturally do this, but you can kind of up the ante on intensity if you teach them to speak. So if you teach them to speak, blah, blah. Come here, babe. If you teach them to speak, you can kind of associate that with these activities that are relevant to hunting. Blah, blah. Can you speak? Speak. Yeah. So really important to teach them how to speak, because that intensity is going to be associated with treeing and baying. And it's also just the most endearing characteristic of them in general. Right in the days before we had our GPS collars, the only thing you had to follow through the woods was that giant booming bark. So I'm going to show you a couple of the things that I like to do to essentially kind of, you know, at least scratch that little hound dog itch that they've got. And as far as baying and treeing goes, what you'll want, any giant stuffed animal will work pretty well. You can buy some bear scent online, and I bought a giant fake bear rug on Amazon, and I just doused it in bear scent that I regularly do before we do these activities. And then you'll want to hang these things in trees, and you'll want to well, she naturally bays the giant trash can when I haul it out to the driveway, so I want to show you how she does a couple of these things. She naturally bays it, so I just drape the bear rug over it, make sure they don't bite, because you don't want them getting too close to your giant fake bear, right? That's something they get points off for in the baying event down at Plott Fest. And so anyways, without being a hunter and of course having any understanding at all on how to do these things, these are some basic ways to try and do some very basic training, at least as much as they could participate in these events. When it comes to real live bear hunting, high cost of entry, right? Not necessarily in terms of literal cost, but it's very tight-knit, very close community of bear hunters in the mountains here in North Carolina. I met some good contacts down at Plott Fest, and hopefully once I get my dog nice and trained up, can kind of get her into the real stuff. So let's check out some treeing and some baying. All right, so baying's a little more natural. So just take your little bear rug, dangle it up front of your, don't bite it. Front of your trash can there. And make sure they bay, but don't bite. If you got a little beeper collar, you can use that if they go to bite it when they first start learning. Now, treeing's a little trickier. You want to find something that they fixate on. In my case, it was like this stuffed raccoon that was my daughter's little stuffed animal, and she constantly wanted to get after it and chew it. And so what I did was hang it up in the tree in the yard, and then wait for her to go over, notice it, and kind of obsess over it. And then I'd kind of smack at the bottom of the tree and encourage her to bark at it and get at the base of the tree with it, like this. Oh, this is a silver lab. Say hi. Say, I'm here too. Yeah, that's constant and forever. So if you want a Plott hound, you better make sure you want that. Come on, tree it. Yes. Come on. Get it. Speak. Speak. Yes. Get it. Tree it. Speak. Speak. Yes. Yes. Then you can get into moving targets, right? Hanging the bear up, putting it in different places, hiding it. I'll put her inside after I douse it in some bear scent, and then hang it somewhere, like up on a little lantern, or we'll dangle it. I'll have my daughter dangle it from like some paracord, like this. Blah blah, tree it. Yes, tree it. Get it. Tree it. Tree it. Speak. Speak. Yes. One more thing I forgot to mention. Road work is something that's regularly mentioned amongst hunters and their dogs. Usually they'll trail behind 4x4s, four-wheelers, trucks on back gravel roads, whatever. I think it's incredibly interesting now that essentially the culture has evolved in a way that hunters are incredibly oftentimes incapable of keeping up in any way with their dogs. Obviously, old timers didn't really have that choice, right? You have to follow, through rhododendron thicket for miles to get to your treed bear. And so, just taking an old forest road with some souped up 4x4 as close as you can to your GPS collared dogs is not necessarily an option. I run with the Plott Hound every day. She's so fast that even if we run a few miles, really her nose is to the ground and she hardly ever even opens her mouth, being out of breath. So what I do to make up for that is I run her on the road in the neighborhood using an electric skateboard at about 20 miles an hour for a couple miles. And the pavement's so hot though, it's not like you can toughen their paws, of course, on trails and in the woods, but the pavement's so hot it'll melt their pads. So I got her some of those stupid little booties to keep that from happening. I'll show you a clip of what that looks like as well. Lastly, don't get a hound just thinking it'll be fun. Get something like this, right? Something sweet and easy, lab, retriever of some kind, something calm that can relax. If you've never owned a hound before, she's currently carrying one of my running shoes into the yard at the moment. High energy is an understatement, right? They're incredibly stubborn, very independent, very attitudinal, grumpy. They need a ton of exercise, of course, but also they're just not like this. They're just a pain, right? Because they need that stubbornness, they need that grit. I can say that this is the first season ever that there's been 0 damage in my garden, partly because of her incessant and never-ending barking, in addition to the fact that I got a tripwire that shoots 308 blanks. But her barking nonetheless never ever stops. So only get a hound dog or rescue one if you are prepared for just a super free-willed, independent, high-maintenance, grumpy person, right? Kind of like a person. Not like these sweet little dogs that we can get sometimes, like silver labs. Right, Madeline? Anyways, this is part 1. I'm going to do a part 2 follow-up when we go to Plott Fest. I'm going to set up the same training thing they've got there for her in the wintertime. And then hopefully get some solid contacts and get in on some hunts.